Good morning. Back on Morning Line on 560 KWTO in studio with David Beck and Kevin Scott. And also on the line, a very special guest, we have Senator Roy Blunt. Senator, how you doing?
Good morning, guys. How are you all this morning?
Oh, doing pretty well. So how are things going there in D.C.?
The weather in Springfield is what?
Rainy.
Rainy for the last week.
Yes. Feel like I live in Seattle.
Exactly.
So, Senator, you got a few minutes with us today. We were talking about some of the things we were gone over yesterday. Looks like you had just recently had followed some of your colleagues and joined some of your colleagues about the Barack Obama's Environmental Protection Agency regulations.
Well, I think these rules that they're promoting are just ridiculous, and they're particularly ridiculous for our state. They hurt families. They hurt job opportunities. They most hurt struggling individuals and families who can barely pay their utility bill now. And one of our great advantages where we live and in the vast middle of the country is that we've had really good competitive utility rates, which means we're a place to look when you want to look for job opportunities. That's high on the list. We have long passed the point of any diminishing returns that these rules and regulations would have. So the cost of these rules to families, the cost of these rules to our utility bills it's an outrageous position for the administration to take. There's no way that Congress would ever pass cap and trade once people figured out what this would do to their utility bills. I suppose the president's promise here is if you like your utility bill, you can keep it. But believe me, our utility bills will double in about 12 years in our state. If you make less than $30,000 now, about 20% of your income already goes to energy costs. Just how much does the president think that Missourians should pay in their utility bill out of their income rather than having good take-home paid jobs?
And this will actually cost jobs as well, correct?
Absolutely will cost jobs. How many stories are there? And I can think of a couple of them in Springfield where somebody's announced we're going to increase the size of the plant, we're going to double the size of the plant, we're going to triple the output, and we're not going to have to lay anybody off. Now, what does that say?
Yeah.
Not that doubling the size of the plant means more jobs, but they've decided to keep that great workforce in place and produce a lot more because all of the other elements, particularly the utility bill, works in today's manufacturing. The country is ready to make things again, and frankly, I think an economy that doesn't grow things or make things isn't the kind of economy you want to have. It's fine to have all those other things with it, but we need to have jobs where people make things, where we're not dependent on other countries for the basic things that we'd like to have the kind of life that families would like to have.
I've been saying that for years. And on another topic, too, a very hot topic lately is the VA hospital and the 57,000 veterans still waiting. Yeah. What's your position on that?
Waiting list. Our state has been a problem in this regard. I was at two of our veterans hospitals just last week. One of them, the Cochrane facility in St. Louis, where a whistleblower is making the case that people on the mental health side aren't seeing nearly as many patients as they would be if they were working in the private sector or working for a not-for-profit organization that wasn't the government. The waiting list, I was able last week, there's some information we found, disclosed this so-called secret waiting list or unauthorized list at the Kansas City Hospital. It's just unacceptable, and our veterans should be able to have the best care in the best location for them. That's why I've always thought more options for veterans to seek care outside the VA if they wanted to was the right direction to take. And it looks like we're going to have a chance, maybe as early as this week and hopefully no later than next week, to pass a bill in the Senate that would let veterans who live more than 40 miles from a clinic or veterans that had passed a reasonable waiting period to have a card to go and get their care wherever they wanted to. Any provider that would take Medicare patients would also be able to take any veteran that wanted to go there. And that means our federally qualified clinics, our hospitals, our behavioral health institutions, veterans should have more choices, and I think we're about to the point where that's going to happen.
And speaking of our veterans, too, this has been a very hot topic on our radio station. Have you been informed about the Marine imprisoned in Mexico? Tamarisi?
And of course, he's not a veteran. He's a currently serving
That's right.
guy. The administration should be insisting that they let him go. I mean, this is a place that had very confusing traffic signs. He drove across the border with his military-issued weapon. As I understand it, it was the military-issued weapon. I'm not absolutely certain on that. He had a weapon in the car, no question about that. Drove across the border. They should have been able to say, hey, turn your car around and go right back. If you got here accidentally, you've got ID that shows you're an American member of the military, just go right back. But when they didn't let that happen, the Obama administration should be insisting with the Mexican government that we get that person back and get him back right now.
I've been hearing that we can't do that without causing an international incident. What avenues can they do to get him back? It seems fairly simple to me.
Well, maybe we just need to have an international incident if that's what it takes. Mexico is a significant neighbor. They're a significant trading partner, and they know that, and we know that. And this is not a hard problem to resolve. There are a lot of problems around the world that the administration just won't engage in. Some are a lot harder than others, but I've been insisting. There's a woman in Sudan right now who will not renounce her Christian faith. Her sentence is that she'll be flogged as soon as her newborn baby is old enough to live independently of her. She'll be caned 100 times and then hung until she's hung as her death sentence. The administration is not taking that seriously enough. Pastor Abedini in Iran is going to be killed by them if they're allowed to keep him long enough. For whatever reason, the State Department is just disengaged in problems that impact individual Americans. And this woman, by the way, Miriam Abraham, is married to an American citizen.
Wow.
Her children are American citizens because their dad's an American citizen. They're in the prison cell with her right now. And this is another case where the administration that just does not take these cases as seriously as you'd want the American government to take them.
Well, that's very true. They seem to be picking and choosing their spots, and very unwisely, to me.
And not many spots. They just don't. The Iran missile nuclear negotiations are not headed in the right direction. Syria is a disaster. I don't know where they're choosing the spot. Frankly, I can't think of a single foreign policy triumph on the part of the administration.
That has
ever. That
has me stumped as well.
In recent time, right? Exactly.
I know the people down here listening to our station are seem to be very upset with things going on with the administration, and we had some elections last night as well. Kevin Scott has a question for you.
What do you think is going on with the elections right now? Eric Cantor lost last night. That was a big upset for the Republican Party, and was beat by a Tea Party person. So what do you think is going on there?
I don't know enough about Virginia politics or the 7th District in Virginia to be very knowledgeable on this. But I think it's time for conservatives, Republicans, and all conservatives to figure out how to bring everybody together to turn the government around. And the message to all candidates is winning in November is critically important. Winning based on principle matters. Losing based on principle doesn't really direct the government in any substantial way. And I think we're beginning to see generally a rallying of conservatives together who want to see a Republican majority in the Senate and the House and have a conservative president join that majority in 2017.
Most definitely.
And we need to figure out how to get everybody together and keep them together in a formula that elects the most conservative candidate possible in November. But that's the key. Who can you elect? And different people in different congressional districts can have different levels of what they what they believe, but they all need to believe in the Constitution and the fundamental principles that our society is based on, and talk about that, and talk about that a lot. One of the reasons I introduced the Enforce Act in the Senate is so to give Congress another way to require the president to enforce the law. We need to find ways to continue to head our country back in the direction of the unique balance that the Constitution discovered and stands for, and that means the president's the executive official in the government, not the person who decides what laws what we're going to do, but follows the direction of the Congress and enforces the laws the Congress passes.
I visited D.C. a while back, and I visited the Constitution. I saw that it was fading. My contention was it's fading because the administration's not listening to it, and it's just going away. That was my contention. That's what it seemed like to me. I think we have one.
That is sort of a supernatural way to view it, but it's fading because it's a couple hundred years old.
Yeah, I know that, and they do take very good care of it.
I'm sure the National Archives are doing the best they can to preserve. And it is the most remarkable document, as I said when I dedicated the Missouri State Manual to the Constitution when I was Secretary of State in the bicentennial. It's the most remarkable document ever written by men. That would exempt the Bible, which is inspired in another way, but ever written by people to figure out how to balance a government and move forward. And we need to continue to honor that unbelievable understanding that came out of the Constitution of how a government dependent on the people could actually control itself. And clearly that there are reasons to be concerned about that balance now, as the president believes he can apparently do anything that the Congress doesn't do that he thinks should happen. And I can't find that anywhere in the Constitution of the United States.
And I believe you have one more question, Kevin?
Yeah, I just had one more question. What do you think about Common Core? What is your position on Common Core?
Yeah, I think that should be left as much as possible. We should leave education decisions up to local school districts and moms and dads. I've been concerned about the Common Core standards. I think that any time that you try to prescribe a national set of standards, even though you leave a lot of that up to the states to develop, that's a problem. Education is not best done in Washington, D.C. for sure, and usually not best done in Jefferson City. It's best done by local school boards and moms and dads and people who are closest to kids.
I can agree with that. I have one of my best friends. She homeschools 6 children and works phenomenally well. And
it does, and that's an option. You know what we see with homeschoolers too is as they get out of high school and go to college, which is they're very competitive at college. This is a pattern that works. It's not a pattern everybody needs to follow or can follow, but if it works for you and your family, that's a decision that we need to really leave for families. And most other decisions at the local level, we elect a school board, and they hire teachers and administrators to do what they think works in their community. And I continue to think that that's the best formula.
Okay. And one more question. I know a lot of our callers here, too, they keep calling in. They seemed a little disillusioned with D.C. and how it's working for them. By a lot of your answers to these questions, it seems like you are trying to do the best for your constituents here. Is that, do you think that's the case with most people up there? Or are our callers correct where most people seem to be working against the people?
Yeah, I actually think the biggest problem in Washington, outside of an administration where the regulators are out of control and unaccountable, is the Congress isn't working, and principally that's the Senate. The majority leader in the Senate, Harry Reid, is the only person under the Senate rules that can determine what work goes to the Senate floor, and we're not doing the job that people have every reason to believe the Senate should do. It's been an unbelievably frustrating 3 years for me trying to get things done, trying to get bills to the floor. Even the fundamental work of how we spend people's money has not been done under the Harry Reid-led Senate the way it was done essentially for 200 years, where you bring these spending bills to the floor. You let every member of the Senate offer any amendment they want to offer about how to better spend that money, as long as they pay for it out of the bill. And one way to say is we just don't spend this money at all. That's a pay for as to how not to spend money. But this work has not been done the way it should be done for 7 years now. And if you don't debate your priorities, before you know it, you forget why your priorities are your priorities. People deserve to see their work done openly, in public, with maximum input from the people they send to Washington to do that job. And Senator Reid is not allowing that to happen. That's why I think changing the majority in the Senate can have such a hopeful and helpful effect on the way we do the work of Washington. The Constitution's still there. We need a Senate leader who's prepared to follow it.
Most definitely, that's for sure. And they call the Republicans obstructionist, and Harry Reid's up there obstructing everything, from what I understand.
The only obstruction the Republicans are making in the Senate is the constant fight to actually debate and amend the bills, and Senator Reid refuses to let that happen and says that Republicans are standing in the way. You can't move on to finish the work when you haven't done the work. You know, Harry Reid would like a yes or no vote on whatever he brings to the Senate floor, and that is not the way our country is supposed to work.
I agree. That's all the questions we have for you. Do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I would think, we're going to run out of time here, but I would think this veterans issue is one that people need to stay focused on. There is so much public outrage in the way our veterans have been treated that I think even the Senate and House that don't get much done are likely to reach a fairly good conclusion here, or at least a big step in the right direction, which will be more options and more choice for veterans. Our veterans groups are now advocating for that as the new path to follow. It doesn't mean you eliminate the option to go to the Veterans Administration, but let's let them be good at what they're really good at, like dealing with IED attacks and injuries, lost limbs, eye problems, things that are not absolutely unique to veterans, but really veterans are seeing more of those than they ever have before. Post-traumatic stress syndrome, this is an area where the VA should be better than anybody else in America, but there's no reason they're better. It's hard to believe they're better than all of the hospitals and doctors you might drive by if you need to get your blood pressure checked or have a heart problem you need dealt with. We have within our reach now a place where our veterans will have more choices for the care they want at the place they want it, and the Veterans Administration that works more effectively. Our goal here should be what's good for the veterans, not what's good for the Veterans Administration.
Exactly. Use every resource we've got.
Real progress there.
Yes, use every resource we have to do it. Thank you very much for calling in, Senator. Really appreciate the time. Thank you again. That was Senator Roy Blunt.